Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Rochford Files with your host that's kind of between the coast, coming to you live from the Mile Highland City. This is Andrew Rochford on a Wednesday night here. And as I said, see y'all later in the week. And I've kept true to that promise so far. So, as you can see, we'll be going in depth somewhat with this whole Biden Safer America speech, debunking a lot of the bullshit lies that he said in it. Then we've also got to talk about that Boston hospital that got the bomb threat last night. I think it's important that someone that isn't part of the shitlip left provide some type of coverage towards that story. And one thing that I didn't put in the title, but I'm going to talk about a recent Gray Zone article by Alex Rubinstein, where he talks about more of the Nazi propaganda at the Warrior Games. So Disney was also involved in that. Then minor league baseball is on the verge of unionization. So that's a very good thing for the game of baseball. So we'll be closing out with that. But if you're here right now, as always, please be sure to like the stream, share it. Then someone somehow isn't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button. And if you're on Twitch, click that follow button and stick around and help the average viewership go up on that. And other than that, let's get on with the show. So let's start. I think I'm just going to start with the Biden Safer America search and just roll through that a bit rather than go straight to the videos. So let's, there's myself again. Let's, you know what? Let's just go straight to the website first. That feels more right in this situation. So let's start off here. So yesterday, Biden was in Pennsylvania giving that big Safer America plan speech that he wanted to do, like, I think 3-4 weeks ago, but then he caught COVID. And he did the usual, oh, I'm double boosted, or else it would have been worse. Just like the full-on Simpsons meme. And you're going to see when I read this how much of this is platitude-based. And the actual, like, explanation of policy is pretty damn non-existent. President Biden knows what works to make our communities safer, investing in community policing and crime prevention. Aha. Right off the bat, where does community policing actually exist? Especially if you're in a major city in the United States of America. Hardly a thing. Hardly a thing. Because if there's one thing about that we know about the big cities and their policing is there will be police officers that'll make a 2 hour, multi-hour commute from their comfortable ass suburb with no real connection to the community that they're supposed to be familiar with. And that right there is one of the first major issues with this. Hey, Leah, good to see you're back for again. But it became painfully clear during the Uvalde shooting that there was no sense of community because the police there were preventing the community from stepping up and taking action. We need to fund police who walk the beat, know the neighborhood, which by and large they don't, given how mo- many officers don't even live in the neighborhoods or even the cities they work in, are accountable to those who are sworn to serve. Hardly ever are, but they're starting to realize if they hold an extra few accountable, it'll give people this false hope and illusion that this system can be reformed and build community trust and safety. We need to invest in mental health and substance use treatment services, crisis responders, and social workers to reduce the burden on police officers. Yes, Joe. So, how do we get that done? If you're going to give the police more money that could have been used for that group. Hey, Kelly. As always, a good hump day wherever you are. Connect with community resources and prevent violent crime. We need to expand community violence interventions led by trusted messengers breaking the cycle of violence and trauma. We need to enforce our common sense gun laws. But before I continue forward, that last sentence right here, it's clear that whoever put this together on the release, they looked for something from the defund the police demands. That way they can work this in. That way they can make you have the false illusion that they're going to actually try putting this into plan as well. And don't forget, Joe Biden wants to hire 100,000 more police officers, an essential double down of his 94 crime bill. So that sentence that I just highlighted right there, there's no reason to believe any of that's going to come to fruition. We need to enforce our common sense gun laws, require background checks for all gun sales in order to keep firearms out of the hands of felons and domestic abusers, and ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines, weapons of war that have no place in our communities. And what we do know, Biden has this classic liberal, yes, in this day of time, trying to disarm the proletariat is definitely a threat to humanity right there. I mean, I think the vast majority of people do think some type of gun control needs to take place, but the ruling class often gets us focused on the wrong people to eh, have that idea get executed. Or that's the idea they put in our brains, rather than it being the focus on the police state, the military industrial complex, the prison system. Plenty of problems. But let's just scroll down specifically to what the plan says. Fund the police and promote effective prosecution of crimes affecting families today. And that part's never going to happen with the way that police unions hold way too much power and have very much so captured the politicians. And I say that even with the fact that they may let a few more of their own get prosecuted in court, like Derek Chauvin, for example, the Ahmed Arbery shooter. But if that's what it takes for them to uphold their system, including by funding 100,000 additional police officers who will be recruited, trained, hired, and supervised consistent with the standards in the President's executive order to advance effective, accountable, non community policing in order to enhance trust in public safety, because status quo policing will not do this, except with the liberal and conservative back the blue bootlickers. Hey, Kelly, we just had another shooting here in Oregon. Apparently, a 20-year-old white guy that brought his weapons legally. Yada, yada, yada. That's the thing, though. They want you to focus on the people who are supposedly legal gun owners, the ones who get them through the black market, but they also won't um, do the thing that fixes the material conditions of people that will make it to where they won't act irrationally to do things like that. Invests in crime prevention and a fairer criminal justice system, including by investing $20 billion in services that address the causes of crime and reduce the burdens on police. Except the fact that Joe Biden implicitly says otherwise. By incentivizing the reform of laws that increase incarceration without redressing public safety. Such a pointless little word salad right there that nothing is going to come from it, really. Takes additional common sense steps on guns to keep dangerous firearms out of dangerous hands. Um, you're trying to put dangerous firearms into 100,000 more dangerous people's hands and put them in a blue uniform, including by calling on Congress to require background checks for all gun sales and ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines. That's their idea of trying to make you safe, is to try to keep more of the working class disarmed. So I think that's a good summary of what was said right there. So let's now go to a couple of the notable videos from the speech yesterday. Clips, I should say. Let's see, let's start with this one.
When it comes to public safety in this nation, the answer is not defund the police. It's fund the police. Fund the police. When it comes to public safety in this nation, the answer is not defund the police. It's fund the police. Fund the police.
First off, let me just say, look at this crowd, and I can see a lot of that white suburban comfort in the crowd. But then again, I can also see a lot of people who have been taken in for a major psyop. I wonder how many people in this crowd were once open to the idea of defund the police over a couple years ago at the height of the George Floyd protest. And can you spot out those people who went from the cops in the crowd with like stereotypical stripper outfits? Oh man, Kelly, I don't think I would want that type of role play. But if that's your kink, then you do you, people. And another thing that is frustrating is these people could have been able to break through the propaganda right in that very moment. But instead, they fell right back in. They allowed corporate media to get them more focused on the rioting and looting and ignoring the violence at the hands of the state a couple years ago. Then, another thing to on this psyop is the fact that once those protests died down, their focus shifted right back to the whole anyone but Trump. And you could tell that they were starting to that there were people, and when I talk about these people who used to be more open to this idea, I'm talking specifically the most loyal of loyal, vote blue no matter who, Democrat types. I'm not talking about the people who voted for Biden just because they felt like that was the best option at the time, but you can also tell that they are still more capable of thinking for themselves and not just accepting anything that this administration gives them. And in fact, they're probably the ones who are willing to like express their frustration with inflation, be adamantly against the United States funding a proxy war in Ukraine, and they do not have the typical American liberal hypocrisy when it comes to Nazis either. I think the one issue is some of those people aren't familiar with independent left people like us. So, but that's part of the psyop in play right here. Then another thing that I noticed is this. I'm gonna put myself back down, and we'll go through the quote tweets because I'm gonna show you a big trend here. Is I'm amazed, honestly, at the amount of the right who legitimately believes that Joe Biden Mr. 94 Crime Bill, Jim Crow Joe, was ever in favor of defund the police. This guy is no worse than one of the top 5 right wing extremist Democrats in the Democratic Party. And you think this guy was ever receptive to the idea of defund the police? Seriously, get the fuck out of here, right wingers. This is just exposing you at how you fall for lazy lies and propaganda that you get fed by conservative corporate media. You know, WCSN, hey, good to see you're here. Uh, People were constantly questioning that whenever you look for the non-white people in the Trump rallies. Let me break that cognitive dissonance for the right now. Who was ever for defund the police, or at least receptive to the idea within the Democratic Party? 2% at best. And that's if I count the same amount of elected progressives and the squad members as were counted up for force the vote. I'm telling you, even though the propagandists enjoy, especially the conservative ones, painting a whole brush by what they consider to be the most the worst people, and they do consider radical lefties the worst. Be honest with yourself. That's only 2% of the whole entire party, at best. And by and large, back in the 2020 elections, the the candidates who had more success were the ones who were more who were putting out better, more receptive messages to defund the police, and those candidates who were the Democrats, the conservative extremist ones, because there are no moderate Democrats. That should be a retired way to characterize conservative Democrats, because liberals are a center right wing ideology, and the Democrats are a center right party, and they've only and not even progressives and the squad are left either. On a good day, they're barely moderate, and there's hardly any good days from them now. So, gotta set the record straight on that. And that's where the right has to, gotta think for themselves more. Gotta be more fact based. Because the facts are, you've got two parties who are competing to establish the right wing flank on the police states. The only difference is the Democrats disguise it in this platitude and feel good language, but their actions always say otherwise. Let's go to the next video here.
And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe. If you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use. That's you. And for those brave right-wing Americans who say,
yeah, as you can see here, Dim Crow Joe is trying to make an appeal to Republicans here, but let's be real. He's only making an appeal to the same right-wingers who are Democratic Party loyalists. You know, the Joe Scarborough, the James Carville types. Those are the types of right-wingers that he's making an appeal to, because that's not going to appeal to your someone who is still clinging on to being establishment Republican supporter, or someone who's MAGA. Their focus is currently right now on Trump not getting prosecuted for anything. And what's hilarious is they've wasted their time believing that it's still possible, just like the way that liberals do in the pointless bullshit theater we got going on. Let's be honest. They just don't want Trump to be a talking head of their political establishment. They'd rather have someone else who's more careful and doesn't say the quiet parts out loud. That's what they don't like about him. And they're just hoping that is enough to keep him away from a major figurehead position. Let's go here next. I think this video, this was a bit longer.
guess what? We took on the NRA, and we're going to take them on again, and we won, and we will win again. But we're not stopping here. I'm determined to ban assault weapons in this country. Determined. I did it once before, and I'll do it again. For many of you home, I want to be clear. It's not about taking away anybody's guns. In fact, we should be treating responsible gun owners as examples how every gun owner should behave. I have 2 shotguns at home. My kids, a long story, but I'm not opposed to guns. But I support the Second Amendment. And I support the Second Amendment. But the Second Amendment, as one of the most conservative justices in history, Justice Scalia once wrote, quote, like most rights, the rights granted by the Second Amendment are not unlimited. They're not unlimited. Right now, you can't go out and buy an automatic weapon. You can't go out and buy a cannon. And for those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe. If you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use. That's used to provide this. And who they shooting at? Shooting at these guys.
Before I get into this, put Kelly's comment up. One would think Joe would be working on lessening the penalties for crack cocaine, seeing how the Republicans win the midterms, Hunter's in trouble. See, this is a good example of why he's unserious, because he's just outside of the political club, just enough to where something could really be happening here. Hey, Yipper99, I'm pretty sure that the other stream you're watching is the RBN stream, and I got that on the TV in front of me as well. because I do support other streams with watch time even as I go live. WCSN. Safer, not from Congress. Terrorists, war criminals, war profiteers, bringing wars home. F the entire DCCC slash DNC slash RNC GOP. And you see how Joe Biden can be dangerous there. And not just the balding head that you see on the screen right now, which is crazy how he looks less bald in the front than he did back in the early 90s. But it's the fact that he can disguise his authoritarian language the way he just did in that little clip. That's the part that's dangerous. Then, as you can see, he waters it down with, oh, I'm for responsible gun ownership. I'm pro 2A. Except the fact that we know that Joe, the people who make the decision, who are giving him his orders, even though I believe a lot of the stuff he says is stuff that Joe Biden himself genuinely believes, even if he's not in the mental capacity that he used to be. It's the fact that he knows that they have to do something to clamp down on another uprising in this, especially one from the left. You got a bit of the right talking about a riot, but the funny part is that's not going to happen because nothing more than like a little slap on the wrist is going to happen to Donald Trump at the end of the day when it's all said and done. So you know that they've got this in mind because Joe Biden is the right winger who was designed to be the guy to put order back to society following those George Floyd protests. And the thing that's different here is that we usually associate at least here in the United States, the person who brings the order back as being what we associate with being more of the conservative party here, and that's Republicans. So that's the little plot twist that we're going through right now because Joe Biden is the one who has been bringing the order back since those protests in 2020. You do know that last year, the whole Domestic Violence Extremist Act, that was one example of trying to clamp down and bring order. And it's part of the reason why they let the January 6th shit go down. Hey, WCSN says, trying to make his crowd look inclusive, like Pelosi, Schumer, wearing kente, acting like they gave a F about George Floyd's murderer and murderers. Yes, I did see that. And I think they planted a guy with the George Floyd shirt in the crowd. And I think there was another thing that I wanted to get into, and there was a video of him trying to go into a major gotcha over the right and the January 6th. I want to get that up on the screen before I close this segment out. If I can find it. If not, then I'll just talk about that part for a bit. Oh, wait, but I saw Uncle Warren share the live stream, so I'm gonna make sure I retweet him. Hope to see Uncle Warren back to streaming again soon. I don't think I'm gonna take much more time to try to find it, but the point is, uh, Biden tried to work in a line where he tried to call out the hypocrisy of the the MAGAs being upset on the whole going after Trump for this January 6th stuff and how they're suddenly anti FBI and whatnot, and saying, which is a pretty stupid gotcha type of line because they're not any. The difference is they're not principled at all against being against the police state. They're really just like they're pretty much like Democrats, except the fact that they're only upset when the police work against them for once. Like, for example, last year when the right got upset when the police were called to some Applebee's because of like kids who, someone not being vaccinated, trying to go in, or not masked, one of the two. That was the moment they get upset at the police. They're not principled about the problems with the police state like the left is. So yeah, that's the Joe Biden we're up against. So let's shift gears a bit because last night a Boston hospital got a bomb threat, and this is kind of connected to like trans rights and right-wing influencers being someone who may have been responsible for this possibly happening. Let's go to a quick little article before I go into that part. Let's go to this before I get started from WCSN again. Not gonna lie, I don't make 450K, but so it would be against my best interest to vote Dem. Much less than 850K vote Republican. Nice. Boston's Children's Hospital was the target of a bomb threat Tuesday night in the wake of false information spreading about the hospital performing genital surgeries on minors in connection with transgender care. Boston police officers and the department's bomb squad descended on the hospital after a staff member at around 8:05 p.m. received a threatening phone call about a bomb in the building at 300 Longwood Avenue. I thought there was a lot more to that article, but I guess this really limits you. And like, oh, that would be why. And no, I'm not going to provide my email address for that. Thanks, but no thanks. One of the right-wing voices who was considered to be very influential to that was Matt Walsh. So let's start here. This is from Chad Loader. a writer about extremism, privacy, OSINT, and anti-fascism. Journalists were reporting on bomb threats against sick kids with cancer at Boston Children's Hospital. It's important that you use the real names of the provocateurs who have been targeting this hospital for weeks. Chaya Raichik, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Walsh. Even though they're trying to deny that Matt, at least, and this lib of TikTok person. Well, let's see if this video right here clears them of any of this. Even though this Lance guy isn't very good, we'll see if this video is helpful.
Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the Matt Walsh show, children's hospitals around the country are butchering, mutilating, and sterilizing their young patients. So according to Boston Children's Hospital, literally every toddler who has ever been born or will ever be born is trans. Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the most children they can and put them all on a path to sterilization and butchery before they can even talk, well, that's because that's exactly what these monsters are doing. And they've done it up until this moment without much resistance from the public. But that has to end. We have to stop making it so easy on them. And that's why I'm in the very early stages of trying to organize a national coordinated effort to fight back against this evil. You know, it's really just a matter of where do we begin. Maybe we begin at Boston Children's Hospital.
Boston Children's Hospital says its staff is being threatened and harassed now after far-right activists on social media posted misinformation, claiming they perform gender-affirming hysterectomy procedures on young girls. The hospital says it's not true. They do not perform those procedures.
Authorities said they responded to Boston Children's Hospital on Tuesday night over a bomb threat. There's been an increase in threats of violence against the hospital over its surgical program for transgender youth.
So, does that really sound like a guy who, oh, they took me out of context? I didn't really say that. No. And look at this. This is the thing that happens following this. You remember a few weeks ago when Kim Iverson was having issues with the whole people changing their names? Well, guess what? Matt Walsh is such a terrible, disgusting piece of shit human being that Kim Iverson is now looking like a major trans ally in comparison now. That's how garbage that the right wingers who are trying to harass and make it literally dangerous for trans people to just exist in the United States. And I think Kim even had Matt on to hash this out, but I didn't watch to see if that was true or not. But they are on a rampage against anything. This is one example of how people like Matt Walsh and several of these other insane right-wing personalities are on an absolute rampage against anything that isn't the cisgender Christian evangelical conservatives in this country. And This is also a good moment to point out how some of the left is a bit flawed when it comes to addressing this, because there's people on the left who who feel, because of the reason that liberals have given woke such a bad cognitive, given being woke such a bad look, that they think they have to completely abandon it rather than show people a better way to be woke, such as showing that you're more serious about the things that you're bringing awareness to. Yes, I do agree, Yipper. He's very much the attention-seeking troll. And I think this is the first time I've even covered him on my show, because if you can tell, I usually don't focus a lot on these reactionary political commentator types. And the only other time I really looked into Matt Walsh is when the Surfs did a video a while back uh, calling out how much of a meltdown Matt Walsh has against the idea of open relationships. So that one obviously gets me nowadays, since I'm more open to that, since I'm now into that style. But other than that, I usually don't pay this guy much attention, but I do think this is a moment that it requires greater attention because of the healthcare aspect and the danger of human rights here. I could see you chiming in as a Rochford on Reef's show. Oh well, for the Reef. Hey man, I'm waiting for Reef to give me that invite to Reef After Dark one of these upcoming Friday nights. But you'd probably need to start off by following me back on Twitter. But let's continue on here, because as I was saying, that some of the left, like Jackson Hinkle, the ones that think the being woke is bad, but it's also because it's unnecessary to abandon it. Just gotta do it in a way that's more serious and shows that you can make connections to like class issues, because the way that the Democratic Party co-ops wokeness is by using it to just put different faces in higher places. And unlike them, people on the left like us are serious about the policy that's actually going to help marginalized communities as a whole, not just elevating faces here and there to continue the uh, bullshit status quo that we're facing right now. Then another thing I gotta say here is this is an example of why we can't just be labeling other people's human rights as a culture war, because trans rights are human rights. Trans healthcare is also part of the human healthcare. Even though, because there are going to be trans people who really need genuine healthcare, and things like this are going to put a target on, potentially on, other hospitals all over the country. And I'm not just talking about, like, they try to say this was children, but this could also be a danger to teens and adults. And if you are someone that's serious about the universal healthcare, like Medicare for all, as a start, then we have to be better about actually standing up for marginalized communities and not just discarding their issues as another culture war, because actual culture war issues aren't just connected to, don't have a direct connection to uh, marginalized communities. Like guns are definitely an example of culture war, but LGBTQ, those are actual human rights at stake, and some of that mixes in and blends in. And this is why it's important to cover, because of that aspect of, I think that some of the left struggles with trying to stand up for like LGBTQ type people. I think they can do well with like marginalized races, but I think there's still struggled on that. And this is definitely a danger to potentially even to people who are at that hospital as well, who even think like these monsters. Is there a Dem standout city we should call Wokeville, Cityburg, Chesterborough, etc.? Oh, I just call it Wokistan. I would say the Dem standout cities are LA and New York City, even though I forgot to work this into the policing segment, but I'll just show you this right quick. LAPD losing personnel at alarming rates, unable to quickly hire new officers. So one of their Dem standout cities is actually having issues trying to bring more officers into the fold. As surprising as that may sound, but that's what we're going to need in order to be able to have a chance to get to defunding the police and the potential road to abolition. People refusing to join the system is going to be part of what we need in order to get to that point. Because it's a lot like what we need to do in taking a long, hard, committed stance and refusing to vote for the duopoly. Not this whole conditional, oh, as long as it's a progressive, that's a fine vote to make. Nope, it's got to be a deep, long, strong commitment. Then if you are voting at all, it's only for third party and independents. And that type of approach can definitely apply to policing as well. If people want the system policing to get better, they have to realize that the system's unreformable, and they have to lose the cognitive dissonance of the belief that it could be changed from the inside, because it won't. If you look at like cities like New York and City and Miami, they have a lot of police of color, and they're carrying out things in the same ways as white majority police forces do. So that's where it's going to start. New York City. A lot of eggheads, especially since the Yankees like clean shaved joke. But let's move on to a new article from the Gray Zone, posted by Alex Rubenstein. So this one found this one a bit before the show, so it has a bit of a sports connection to it, so it's also good as well. Jon Stewart and the Pentagon honor Ukrainian Nazi at Disney World. Defense Department sponsored Warrior Games featured liberal comedian Jon Stewart awarding a member of Ukraine's neo-Nazi Azov battalion at Disney World. The Pentagon refused to tell the Gray Zone whether U.S. taxpayers funded the foreign competitor's travel. This August, during the Department of Defense's annual Warrior Games at Disney World in Orlando, liberal comedian awarded a Ukrainian military veteran honor named Ihor Halushka the Heart of the Team Award for inspiring his team with his personal example. Halushka happens to have been a member of the neo-Nazi Azov battalion, which has been armed by the United States and integrated into the Ukrainian National Guard. The award-winning ultra-nationalist wore a sleeve over his left arm as he accepted the prize, presumably to cover up the tattoo of the Nazi Sonnenrad or Black Sun. Yeah, now it's back in larger. Forgot that for a moment, but that just goes to tell you. Exactly, Kelly. Exactly. And that's the thing. We've been trying to point this out for the past 5+ months. How much of an inconsistent standard that liberals are having, because they're supposedly against Nazis like the Proud Boys in the United States, but since they're fighting against Russia, the Azov battalion is fine. Make it make sense. Because the Warrior Games are sponsored by the Pentagon. Red flag, if there's ever one. American taxpayers likely to pay to send Ukrainian Nazis like Halushka to Disney World. Indeed, at least 2 members of the Ukrainian team of wounded veteran athletes flown to Orlando are confirmed members of neo-Nazi groups in their country. Yulia Polevska and Ihor Halushka were members of the fascist Right Sector organization and Azov battalion, respectively. And they say, and these blue liberal loyalists think they're fighting against fascism when their president, Joe Biden, is emboldening it. In Ukraine, well over $60 billion and counting being sent to these people like these. And that's our tax dollars at work. Oh, I think I'm going to break this article with another video real quick before I continue, because I saw this video from a German prime minister earlier, so I think it's important to play that before I continue on.
But if I give the promise to people in Ukraine, we stand with you as long as you need us, then I want to deliver, no matter what my German voters think, but I want to deliver to the people of Ukraine. And this is why, for me, it's important to be always very frank and clear. And this means every measure I'm taking, I have to be clear that this holds on as long as Ukraine needs me. We are facing now a winter time where we will be challenged as democratic politicians. People will go on the street and say, we cannot pay our energy prices. And I will say, yes, I know, so we help you with social measures. But I don't want to say, okay, then we stop the sanctions against Russia. We will stand with Ukraine, and this means the sanctions will stay also in winter time, even if it gets really tough for politicians.
Had to work that in. Yes, this is absurd. Very absurd. Nairi. The fact that she could say that in her country of Germany and not have people taking to the streets moments after hearing that. And Germany is probably more ahead, and they are definitely more ahead of the curve when it comes to being ready for the idea of a general strike in comparison to the United States. But if Joe Biden says that, think about the amount of liberals who are not only cheerleading that shit, and what's worse is they won't even be upset about it. And that's the fucking sad part. Because when it comes down to it, they'll just be like, but what about Trump? Look, I'm not going to say that even though Donald Trump tries to say the right things, like the whole diplomatic solution, it's easy for him to say when he's not in office. Because if he does get to come back and continue this proxy war, he's going to carry this shit on much the same as Joe Biden. But it is definitely insanity, and the fact that we have to point out that people in Europe are really facing worse. They could be facing worse conditions in certain aspects than we'll be going through here. Like the fact that they could be nights where they're freezing during the rolling blackouts. I mean, at least we would like to think that our energy is not going to go through that type of crisis as some of these other NATO countries in Europe. But the fucked up part about this shit is the fact that these politicians are willing to fuck their own people over. That's how bad the Russophobia is with them. And that should go to show you that. That just goes to show you why. I got distracted for a moment, but why, if you're a citizen in any of these NATO countries, and someone who actually cares for your own country and who actually wants to bring down the suffering that is taking place, then you gotta be adamantly against your politicians funding a proxy war where they're supporting Nazis in the way that they are right now, especially the United States, because that is worsening your own condition. And as you can tell, these politicians, they do not give a fuck about us. When they're literally saying right out in the fucking open that they care about Ukrainians more. So that's how our tax dollars and the other NATO tax dollars are at work, Kelly. Now let's go back to the Gray Zone article, shall we? The pair are part of a team of 40 Ukrainian veterans participating in the Warrior Games. They were joined at the ceremony for this year's competition by Darius Rucker, the former vocalist for the glorified bar band Hootie and the Blowfish, and liberal comedian Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart delivers opening remarks at the DoD Warrior Games. During the closing ceremony, Stewart awarded the Azov Battalion's Halushka with the Heart of the Team Award. The announcer proclaimed Ihor inspires a team with his personal example and his unique sense of humor. Sergeant First Class Ihor Halushka embodies the spirit and determination that is the heart of Team Ukraine. Stewart triumphantly bellowed Ihor as the Nazi was presented with his trophy. And there's Stewart right there, awarding him the handshake. And this is why you had to be wary of Jon Stewart when he was doing that whole speech for the veterans, like a good 3 weeks ago or so. And that's because I was telling you that this guy was an op, controlled op. And that's how you were able to do a speech on C-SPAN. They don't let real independent-minded people get a moment to speak on C-SPAN like that. And the fact that Jon Stewart could have used that moment to make a broader call for healthcare, and that also, in a way, proves that he wasn't really an anti-war guy either. Prior to Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February of this year, mainstream outlets from the Daily Beast to Vox to Foreign Policy and even the U.S. government propaganda outlet Voice of America have each acknowledged that Azov Battalion's embrace of Nazism. Right Sector Group has been similarly identified as a fascist organization. Since the invasion, however, Western corporate media has downplayed the presence of Nazis in the Ukrainian armed forces, as groups like the Azov have taken on prominent frontline roles. Let's cue up the Spider-Man meme real quick for Jon Stewart and Vladimir Zelensky, because Jon Stewart is also a Jewish man propping up Nazis, as they both are. Reached by phone, Warrior Games communication director Travis Claytor. Wonder if that's an alternative name for Clay Travis. Wouldn't it be a very original one? would not tell the Gray Zone, who covered the travel expenses of Team Ukraine and all other foreign competitors. Claytor merely stated that the Department of Defense is not responsible for their costs. However, he noted the relationship with each team is different. Ukraine and Canada are the only foreign teams participating in this year's competition. While promising this reporter a more complete response by email, Claytor so far has failed to deliver. A video on the DoD Warrior Games YouTube channel entitled Family Night at the Magic Kingdom shows some members of Team Ukraine joining a night out at the world-famous theme park. This year's Warriors games are taking place at the ESPN Wide World of Sports complex at Walt Disney World Resort. Competitions include shooting, wheelchair rugby, cycling, powerlifting, indoor rowing, wheelchair basketball, field, golf, track, swimming, sitting volleyball, and archery. This is the first year Team Ukraine has participated in the Warrior Games. Its athletes came away with at least 18 gold medals. Interesting, isn't it? The first time Ukrainians get propped up are the moments where Russians all over the sports world are getting banned from competing in sporting events. Jews shaking hands with Nazis? Is there anything else to see in life as a human? We just like bombing everyone and borrowing money to do so. Ain't that the truth, WCSN? Ukraine's team is composed of the same veteran athletes that participated in the Invictus Games, a similar competition of wounded veterans founded by Prince Harry after the English royal intended the Warrior Games. Ukraine's Invictus Games team and Warriors Games team are both led by Oksana Gorak, according to the Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And there's more members of their team right there. The organizational team of the Warrior Games in Ukraine includes the Ministry of Veteran Affairs of Ukraine, the Center for Strategic Communications, Stratcom Ukraine, the NGO Invictus Ukraine Games. The Veterans Affairs website states Stratcom Ukraine, unlike the Ministry of Veterans Affairs, is a governmental body, while others appear to be Ukrainian NGOs. As the Gray Zone reported, the head of Ukraine's Veteran Affairs Agency attended a 2019 neo-Nazi black metal concert featuring several anti-Semitic metal bands and promoted the event on Facebook. Interesting. Very interesting. And they're complaining about pro-Palestinian voices being the ones that are anti-Semitic. And when I say that, specifically Zionist and pro-Israel voices. According to a deleted article from 2017 on an Azov Battalion website, at least 3 members of the notorious ultra-nationalist fighting force have participated in the Invictus Games because Azov identified the competitors by their call signs, therefore did not disclose their real names. It is not possible to determine where they also competed in the 2022 Warrior Games. Ihor Halushka, back in 2014, the Azov Battalion's patch is visible on his left arm, as you can see right there. While the team page on the Invictus Games merely states that Ihor Halushka was a member of the Ukraine's National Guard, an expanded bio on the website right there makes it clear that he was a member of Azov. An unlisted YouTube video by the Invictus Games on YouTube offers a close-up of Halushka working out with a black Nazi black sun symbol tattooed on his left elbow, clearly visible. Halushka opted to cover the fascist symbol during photo ops at the Warrior Games. Halushka has never been shy about his ties to the Azov Battalion. During the Invictus Games this April, he whipped out an Azov flag as he accepted a gold medal, which was hosted in The Hague, where war criminals are normally tried, not awarded. Likewise, in Orlando, Halushka wore an Azov Battalion t-shirt as he accepted a gold medal for indoor rowing. He was honored days later as the heart of his team. You wonder, just goes to show you, religion is used as a tool to manipulate. Yeah, it's very wild how much this corporate propaganda can help in that. I mean, look at how readily available like Azov Battalion merchandise was on Amazon. He was honored days later as the heart of his team. Symbol of Ukraine bravery was a member of fascist right sector. Perhaps the most famous Ukrainian Warrior Game participant is Yulia Polevska, who the New York Times dubbed a symbol of Ukraine bravery and self-sacrifice. Wow. And to think, a few years ago, even the corporate New York Times could have acknowledged that. Their Nazi ties. Polevska gained international recognition this March when she handed off footage she had filmed in Mariupol to a journalist with the Associated Press. The video showed Polevska evacuating Azov battalion soldiers from the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol, where she was captured by Russian forces. 3 months later, she was released. Polevska's release by Russia was such a notable event in Ukraine that President Zelensky personally remarked on the development. The Associated Press downplayed her links to the Azov Battalion, writing, Russia has portrayed Tyra as working for the Nationalist Azov Battalion. But the AP found no such evidence. Friends and colleagues said she had no links to Azov. However, Polevska was a member of another neo-Nazi formation similarly incorporated into the Ukrainian military, a fact not mentioned by mainstream media outlets that vaulted her to war hero status this March. A 2019 Bloomberg Business Week report identified Polevska as a former member of Right Sector. There's no such thing as ex-Right Sector, she claimed. After leaving the group amid infighting, she organized a team of combat medics after her World of Warcraft character, Tyra's Angels. I don't think there's anything angelic about being part of fascist or not Nazi forces. Bloomberg's correspondent met with Polevska in Mariupol, which was then controlled by the Azov Battalion. Polevska's medic group runs through about 20,000, half of it from abroad, in cash, fuel, and medical supplies every month, he reported. Photo of Polevska from the Team Ukraine Facebook page. Every time I talk to describes Polevska, dappled with Buddhist tattoos and sporting dyed blue hairs, merely motivated purely by patriotism, he added. And once again, not surprising that the new imperialist left-hand man in Ukraine has an understanding of patriotism that's more in line with nationalism. In a photo posted by the Facebook page for Ukrainian Warrior Games, Poleshka's tattoo of the ultra national slogan, "Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes," is clearly visible. Another member of Poleshka's media group was wearing a t-shirt from the neo-Nazi apparel company Shaw Stone, an Iron Cross ring, according to Bloomberg. And here's some examples of the whole Nazi salutes that they use. One photo there, one Max Blumenthal included in when he shared the article. Let's jump down to here. American taxpayers have already forked $60 billion over to Ukraine since the war broke out in 2014. They are therefore entitled to know whether the Department of Defense paid Ukraine's travel expenses. I think it's pretty much a given, even if they never tell us one way or the other. Video from the Department of Defense shows Ukrainian team deboarding on the tarmac at MacDill Air Force Base. Did they ever pass through customs? Highly doubtful. While the presence of neo-Nazis within Ukraine's fighting forces may come as little surprise to critical observers of NATO's conflict with Russia, their invitation to Disney World by the Department of Defense is without a doubt one of the weirdest episodes in the Ukraine proxy war. And this type of weirdness is absolutely going to continue. I mean, look, I'm just going to say this about Jon Stewart first and foremost. And this is going to express it this is this GIF is going to express how I feel about Jon Stewart and how a lot of people should be changing the way they feel about Jon Stewart following him doing this. He had us in the first half. Not going to lie. Real question, why are there so many proud Ukrainian Nazis? Is it the Jewish thing? I don't see many people of color there. And the thing is, when it comes down to it, they're even getting black people to be connected to this Nazi movement. I mean, look at Malcolm Nance. He's pretending to be a Ukrainian fighter right now somewhere. And also getting Darius Rucker involved in this event. And it's pretty fucking wild, the amount of people who have been taken into one of the many several psyops that the Democratic Party likes to take you into. And it's staggering to say the least, Kelly. But to continue on with Jon Stewart, because for years we watched The Daily Show, and we used to think this guy had a mind of his own and was an actual contrasting voice in the political commentary space. But the truth is, Jon Stewart had people fooled for far longer than Stephen Colbert ever had him fooled, for far longer than Trevor Noah or Larry Elmore. The facade dropped much quicker with those three guys than it ever did with Jon Stewart. And he is just another tool of the military industrial complex, as far as I'm concerned, these days. And it happens to a lot of people who do get that big platform that you think are at least a bit better than all the other guys that you hear on those type of platforms. But Jon Stewart just proved in that moment that he's captured much in the same way, just like everyone else. Yep, it took him longer, but I think it's becoming more and more clear now, WCSN. Darius Rucker doing whatever he can to resuscitate his career that's been dead since the 90s. I mean, come on. It's so sad that not even the Gray Zone would put a photo of him in the article to uh, help hurt his credibility by being associated with this. I do have a question about Mr. Noah. Has he said anything funny yet? I don't know about that one, but I'm sure if I rewatched his comedy specials, definitely less funny than I would have thought. But I'm sure there's people who used to think Bill Maher was funny, and they hardly laugh at him now. So, one more thing for tonight. And this will be on minor league baseball. So this news broke a bit after I was live on Sunday. Then we'll go to some more recent stuff through the tweet search. Major news. The Major League Baseball Players Association wants to unionize minor leaguers. The union has sent authorization cards to minor leaguers. Cards tended to demonstrate sufficient support among you and your fellow minor leaguers to hold an election. MLBPA guidance to players. The MLBPA will present the cards confidentially to the NLRB to show both that a significant number of minor league players support having MLPA represent them and that a union election should be held. MLBPA guidance continued. As an alternative to an election, the MLPA can seek voluntary recognition of the union by MLB, which would involve showing the cards on a confidential basis to a neutral party to verify that a majority of players support MLBPA representation. So this is a pretty big step in news right here because I think that a lot of people out there just think all athletes in sports are just automatically doing better than just about everyone else, with maybe the exception of that Olympian who just doesn't really make anything from their sport that really only gets attention every 2 to 4 years during the Olympics. But the thing is, there are a lot of minor league baseball players who have historically struggled, especially the career journeyman types. And I know last year on the show, I did cover some of the poor conditions that minor league players had to endure, especially on certain teams who were definitely worse about taking care of their players than others. And some examples of that, yeah, that would, and early results are promising, Kelly, and WCSN. Minor League Baseball players are returning union authorization cards in volume, according to MLBPA chief Tony Clark. To say that we are more than encouraged by the return of cards in the last 24 hours would be an understatement, he told Sports Business Journal. And this is a very good sign, as this is from More Perfect Union, who is a very good Twitter account for following unionization of pretty much anything. And that's a very good sign right there. I remember that organization, like the Marlins, were very notoriously bad for treating their players, forcing many of them to 5-6 guys share hotel rooms. They would have to come up with very, very creative ways to just get food. And it wasn't until last year, wasn't until that outrage from that where things got slightly better for them, but still not in the way that it could with an actual union. But let's play this video real quick from More Perfect Union to illustrate more of the bad conditions that minor leaguers had to go through.
If they're a show cow, great. Put them in the fair. It breaks my heart to see it because this is the game that I've loved since I was a child. And I want to see it be the best it can possibly be. And its employees are being treated like commodities, like cattle to be traded. If they're a show cow, great. Put them in the fair. If they're not, put them in the slaughterhouse. Baseball can be a lot more than where we have it now. The higher-ups have become so comfortable with how cheap it is to run the minor leagues that they figure it's a successful model. And from a business standpoint, it might be. But from a human standpoint, it's a massive failure. When a player is first drafted, they are picked up by a team and signed to a 7-year minimum contract. That 7-year minor league minimum contract entails a certain amount of pay at each level. We are considered seasonal employees, thanks to some clever lobbying by the MLB. We can legally not be paid a living wage. At one point, we did the math for the amount of hours that we spent at the field, and it came out to about $4 an hour. Now I think it's up to about $7. It still is about half of the going rate, considering we work roughly 60 hours a week. The income is impossible to live on, plain and simple. So we're in a 3-bedroom. We have 2 in 1 bedroom, 2 in the one I'm in right now, and a master bedroom. This room is split in half, and I probably have, 10 by 5? And that's kind of my space. That's my little area. This is my roommate's area. But at one point this season, he and I were having to share this bed because I didn't have a bed yet, and we weren't even sure if I was going to get one in at the time. Typically, you have mattresses on the floor, and that's it. Maybe a couch in the living room or a TV that you get from Walmart that you're going to return in 90 days and get your money back. The basic creature comforts that we've come to know in modern society do not exist for minor leaguers. The food quality is absolutely not adequate for athletic performance. Some teams were okay providing nothing but like a ham and cheese sandwich and some chips. If you're in Kodak, Tennessee, and the food's not good, your only option at night is to walk to Taco Bell. You should never defer to Taco Bell. Taco Bell last resort, always. There's a deep, kind of pervasive sadness that underpins this game at times. I had a suicide attempt in the winter of 2015, going into 16, where I was living in downtown Phoenix. I was rehabbing from a hip surgery, and at the time I was just drinking. And I just remember one night being like, man, it's just not worth it. I'm not doing anything. I'm not helping anybody. Throughout the years, I've watched the mental health of guys deteriorate, whether it leads to substance abuse, whether it leads to depression, anxiety, or just leaving the game behind.
Now the set by Lovegrove, 2-2. Swing and a miss, fastball at 98.
The talent level in the minor leagues is equivalent to Major League Baseball minus the consistency. Every game that you go to, you'll have a guy throwing upper 90s. You'll have a guy hitting the ball 450 feet. The difference is they're doing it eating Stouffer's mac and cheese and some dry chicken with baseball's $12 billion revenue in 2019, and the fact that the combined worth of the owners is about $75 billion. It feels like a direct slap in the face to everyone who puts on the cleats and goes out there and plays for the organization, that we are giving our bodies, hearts, minds, souls to this game, and the payoff coming back to some players is negative. I mean, less than minimal. Like I said, guys are losing money. Guys are losing health. Guys are losing weight. That to me did not make sense. And I tried to rationalize it every possible way I could. I just couldn't find an answer for it.
So, take me back to when MLB players and the owners were negotiating for agreement over the upcoming season. And so many people discarded, oh, it's just a battle of millionaires and billionaires. Like they're even close to being in the same fucking planet of wealth. Guess what? That's the type of rhetoric that can trickle down and even more further negatively affect minor leaguers. And that's why it is such a bad talking point to fall into the belief of, latch onto, because when you just marginalize millionaire athletes and billionaire owners as just a battle of rich people, guess what? That shit trickles down to someone poor and struggling to get their working conditions met, just like minor leaguers, shown right there in that video, that illustrated many of the poor conditions that I had previously covered last year. And this is why when you're a pro worker, you got to be consistent with being even pro the millionaire workers in certain, because if the billionaires can screw over millionaire workers, just think about how much worse they'll do to their lowest paid workers. I mean, if you're up at a millionaire class, then yeah, that money is definitely trickling a bit more sideways. Yes, another good point to be made, Kelly, is that like team dancers and cheerleaders are definitely really underpaid as well. And the way they get away with that is the fact that many of them only get paid per game and don't have yearly salaries either, which also means they're not getting paid practice, I don't believe they. And that's how they managed to keep a lot of their stadium workers as well underpaid too, is because of the fact that per game, no yearly salary. And the things that the minor league baseball players are advocating for should be easily reasonable for a league, a billionaire supported league. Very, very much reasonable. And even though, like, the NBA supports the WNBA, even though they're not like minor league baseball type bad, they could still even be better at supporting the working conditions of WNBA basketball players too. Especially that example of a story I covered, I think, in March or April, when the league got upset at players being on having a better flight ticket as opposed to being the basic commercial class.
It breaks my heart to see, because this is a game that...
But yeah, the MLB easily can support these guys with a proper living wage, which I do imagine isn't going to quite meet the true thriving wage that it should be, but should at least be easily double the average amount they get paid an hour right now. And you should easily get to enough of a food stipend where you could have the ability to eat healthy, and housing situation that doesn't force you to have like 8-10 people living in a single house, and possibly forcing players to share beds together and only buy stuff and return it within the return policies. So there's a lot that needs to improve for minor league baseball, and they can't continue to cheapskate the game like this. And it's good that the MLB Players Association is finally starting to use its muscle to try to stand up for them too, because that's the type of thing that we need to see in other workforces, where there's a collective organizing between the workers, regardless of pay levels, because that's the way that we'll eventually get like the collective workers uprising that we need to have happen and take the form of a general strike. But things like these are what need to happen. You know, as fucked up as it sounds, that seems like a good marketing ploy. As you can see, you could win over liberals with just about anything that the Democratic Party tells them is right, and that's absolutely the fucking sad part about it. Thanks so much to everyone for showing up tonight to tonight's episode of the Rochford Files with your host, Andrew Rochford. Y'all know the drill. If you've please be sure to like the stream, share it, and preferably share it somewhere new too. If you're on Twitter, Twitch, click the follow button. Go to the link tree down below and make sure that you're connected to all the places where the Rochford Files is at. And thank you, Kelly. Same goes out to you and your family as well. Also, in addition to that, I'm actually got a guest in the works. I'll be reaching out to them sometime tomorrow to see about a good time for an interview. So this will be more of a traditional type of interview, not like in the way of like a planned segment type thing, but with a normal guest, but more interview. So I'll see. Should have a better idea of what the progress will be about that soon. But with that being said, I'm not sure when the next time I'll be on is, but I'm thinking Monday potentially. I think Monday will be the latest I'll be back. Let's just say that. Have a good old little special Labor Day stream since I got the day off from work. 3-day weekend coming up for me. High five to you as well, WCSN. Thanks. And hope all the family is doing well for you too. And with that being said, this is Andrew Rochford saying goodbye and good night.